Morning, my name is Ben. I'm a follower of Jesus. Welcome to Rebuild Humanity 27. That is counting all the spiritual theological subjects, not counting the music and other miscellaneous things that may be on there. What I would like to talk about is a solution that I believe God revealed to me. Someone had asked me in a conversation about this troubling, confusing presidential election what I would do if I was president. And I'd not thought of that before. I don't think of myself as a presidential kind of person, nor as one who would run for office or do that kind of thing. I doubt that the White House really wants someone who is kind of promised not to wear any more suits the rest of his life. I don't think America's had a president with any facial hair since Teddy Roosevelt. Certainly not a president with a beard since probably Grant, I think. Two great presidents, by the way. Two great presidents, memorable personalities, and memorable facial hair. Just an observation. What I've been thinking about is the polarized response we have to the war on terror. And that is, much like with faith in science, we've kind of been given the notion that we're either totally in favor of war, and being in favor of war means being in favor of the troops, means being in favor of America. Those things are kind of all packaged together. And if one was to be against the war, they would be at the same time against America and against the troops. Now, I think that's a false polarity, that if we don't think for ourselves, we find ourselves feeling like we have to go along with one or the other option. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're patriotic, you're not patriotic. Well, there are other ways to think of these things. Now, first of all, where does war come from? Who fights wars? War, among other things, has to do with resources. Yes, that was a kitten. War has to do with resources. War has to do with somebody wanting something someone else has. Often. There are other wars for other reasons. But that's very much a big cause of war. Now, the people that fight wars are often, and by fighters I mean the infantry, I mean the people that are on the ground, I mean people that are likely to be shot. That's who I'm referring to when I say people that fight wars. I'm not using the best, most precise language, but I think you understand what I mean. Generally, wars have the highest toll on the people in the greatest economic difficulties. The military has been, in many situations, not all, a career option for a young, hardworking person who has a lot of kids and not as many opportunities. And they go, here's a stable job, here's a job that's going to reinforce my sense of identity, my sense of pride in myself. And America's military are some of the finest human beings upon this earth. We have one of the greatest militaries in the history of the world. I am a supporter of our military. Let me make that very clear. And God has blessed this country in many ways. One of those ways has been, if you look at history, every time America has gone to war where the people have believed in it, we have been undefeatable. When we have gone to war and the people have not believed in it, it has not gone well. Consider that. Now, currently, the majority of people that serve in the military have families, and they either leave them behind when they go and serve overseas, or they bring their family to dangerous places. And I'm generalizing, and there's a constant fear that you're going to lose a loved one to this. That some young man who's 19 years old and has 2 kids, and a third one on the way, goes to Iraq and misses his family for 6 months and then maybe doesn't come back. And those are terrible things. It's a terrible weight we place upon these young men and women because of the way that we relate to war in this country. These young men and women don't get up in the morning saying, I'd really like to shoot somebody today, I'd really like to get shot today. That's not the things they say to themselves. They say, I have a great job in a great country with a great military, and I'm making a contribution to freedom and the greatness of America. That's what they're saying to themselves. But the fact is, the risk of death is gigantic. So on both sides of war are often people who are there because it's their job, not because they want to shoot people. And frankly, it's like you're looking through the barrel of a gun at someone who is your mirror image. Terror. Terror has slightly different components to it. Terrorism. However, I think the parallels are astonishing with the Nazi movement of World War I and the Depression. Specifically, Germany had been crushed militarily and economically as a result of losing the First World War. They had lost their national pride and self-esteem, and these young men were angry, and they were looking for someone to blame. And then the Depression hit huge amounts of the world, and then they become a powder keg of people that are looking for a solution, looking for a way to regain their pride, looking for a way to regain their sense of manhood and national identity. And a psychopath named Adolf Hitler exploits their hunger and their sociological depression and their anger, and is able to tell them the way we get back food and pride, national identity and manhood is go to war on this particular front, and that front is racial purity. And he succeeded in getting a lot of people excited about his false and satanic cause. Because Hitler's agenda were ultimately satanic, ultimately from hell. They seem to come from him, but they're inspired by demons. So, in the Middle East, there's a lot of young men feeling the same way that men did in the 30s and 40s and maybe the 1920s in Germany, feeling like the world has changed and left their conservative values behind, and they feel disempowered, they feel angry at the world, and they have someone has come to them, several someones, and said, here's the solution. We go to war on this subject, and it'll reclaim the glory that used to be of our culture. It will reclaim the resources we want. It'll allow you to have a self-definition as a really righteous old school kind of man, and they're falling for it. Falling for an agenda that is again ultimately from hell, ultimately satanic. So, my proposal is that we remove the reasons for terror that make it possible to recruit young, angry, disillusioned young men by blaming America, and therefore expose the relatively small amount of people that want war for the sake of war. I believe that in virtually all wars, you've got a majority that are in there for dignity, a paycheck, a sense of belonging to something. A small amount of people that really want war just because they want war. And the world doesn't need those people. There are times and places when war is necessary, but we should not be having it as the only option. Amen? So, what I propose has to do with something that was inspired by the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco. I went to a museum and found out that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was able, in a very short time, to take a completely destroyed city, destroyed by fire and earthquake, and turn it into a functional town with housing and infrastructure, utilities, as it were, clean water, functional energy, in a very short period of time. Now that is the kind of amazing, miraculous thing that our military is capable of. So I am proposing, as a solution to terror and long protracted wars and land engagements which endanger the good people that serve in our military, that we repurpose our military to a majority of people equivalent to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who will rebuild things that are broken, who will make things work. So, to begin with, we have to identify places that are going to be the next frontiers of terror. The places where you have economic brokenness, the places where you have religious conflict, the places where you have bad water, bad food, poor access to education. And I believe much, 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 much cheaper than the current expensive wars is we go in as a military force, not the Peace Corps, and we build these things proactively. And we reduce the reasons why someone would be recruitable, and we reduce the reasons anyone wanted to blame America for their problems. And so, what this will do is when men that want war for the sake of war start hunting down to recruiting potential soldiers in terror, that they won't be able to find anyone. They won't be able to find someone who is easily harvestable because of their disillusionment, because of their anger, because of their loss of personal pride, national pride, religious pride. And you'll have a small group of committed people who are committed to war. Now, I don't think anyone... Now, so far you might have thought my perspective somewhat liberal. But my perspective is, soldiers don't want to kill people. Soldiers generally do not want to kill people. And generally, the people that are getting killed don't want to be killed. Okay. And these are the roots of these things. Now, what it will expose is a small group of people that want war for the sake of war, who can, now here comes the conservative part, be eliminated. We already have snipers, we already have assassins. Now, imagine how different the war on terror goes. If we're able to eliminate 90% of the people that would have fought would have fought as terrorists by eliminating the reasons they want to be one. And then there's 3 or 4 lunatics, or maybe not 3, maybe 30 or 40, maybe 300 or 400, I don't know, who are clearly stating they don't care what kind of good works America does, they don't care what kind of good works anybody does for them, they want war for the sake of war. The world does not need those people. Those people can be eliminated freely. Secondly, the reason this has to be a military force that does this is I believe that there will be violent opposition to an occupying force bound and determined to dig wells, build infrastructure, build schools, and those people have to be stopped. Anybody that tries to oppose this has to be stopped from doing this. You should not have the freedom to prevent others from gaining the benefits of this program. So, majority devoted to proactive building and terror prevention. Strategists assigned to identifying locations that will be future terror targets. And a police force for protecting these endeavors. Now, who benefits from this? The American economy, the American soldier, the world in general, the families of American soldiers. Who is hurt by this? I think there are 2 demographics that I don't think we care very much about. One is the leaders of terror who want terror for its own sake. People that, to paraphrase, God hates the feet that run to shed innocent blood. People that want murder and war for its own sake are not anybody we need to go out of our way to preserve, to make jobs for. Those people eventually find themselves on the end of on the wrong side of capital punishment. And once again, the Bible is in favor of capital punishment. So, secondly, this will be highly negative for the military-industrial complex. We do not talk about it as much as we should, but when we go to war, we're putting business opportunities on the plate of the military-industrial complex. That is partnerships between the U.S. government, the Department of Defense, and private contractors. A great deal of our national budget goes to these people. I think we'd be shocked if we recognized there was a way to create a solution to terror that did not require the military-industrial complex, and we were still enriching them every day. Now, I am not running for any office. I don't think America would like this as a president. I'm the least professional person in the world, and I like that. I think that someone elected with this promise would probably be assassinated. And they'd be assassinated by the military-industrial complex, if not just being a massive target of terror at some point. I do think this is a wise and valid solution. I think it applies the logic and principles of the Word of God to loving our neighbors, to being wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, and also to have no tolerance for those who want to murder. In Jesus' name, amen.